Hey, what's up guys? Phil here from Inspired Fitness. Welcome to the new home studio. I'm super excited to show you guys. But first, let's talk about the mochi donuts that we're making today. We're putting some protein in and way less fat than usual. So we're gonna be learning how to make the macros from this to this. So let's get cooking up, guys. So I'm actually super excited to show you guys this recipe. We got protein mochi donuts here. It was actually pretty hard to make, but we managed to take around 10 grams of fat in here and managed to put 4 more grams of protein. So let's figure out how we can do that and the steps that we can take. So the ingredient list will be down in the description below, so make sure you get everything before you start this recipe. So up first, we got 200 grams of fat-free milk, 2 whole eggs, 45 grams of monk fruit sweetener, 180 grams of tapioca starch, around 30 grams of a neutral flavored oil, around 30 grams of all-purpose flour, 30 grams of your favorite protein powder. This wasn't 30 grams, but it just kind of matched, the ingredients. 40 grams of powdered sugar, and topping it off with some matcha powder. So we're going to be starting off with the stove here, and make sure you go on low heat or it's going to burn the pastry dough. So let's heat up that pan for a minute or two before we put all the ingredients in. So first things first, we're going to put the oil in just to let it heat. A regular recipe calls for 2 servings of this, so we're going to cut that in half by just pouring in 1. So we're going to be using 200 grams of fat-free milk here. They usually put whole milk into this, which has a lot more fat than this, so we're saving a lot of fat with these 2 ingredients, guys. Up next, we're going to pour up that monk fruit sweetener. This adds so much flavor without the added carbs and sugar. Just let that heat for a minute or two and let that get really hot before we add in the pastry mix. So let's get into our dry ingredients. The first ingredient we're going to be putting in here is all-purpose flour that we mentioned from earlier. So now we're going to be putting around 30 grams of our favorite protein powder. I would usually use vanilla in this stage, but I didn't have any. All I had was a cinnamon bun from BPI, I think. And then it actually tasted really good. I actually like the cinnamon in this. So now let's get rid of that stupid little blue spatula because it wasn't doing anything, and get out like a real whisk or something so we could really mix this in. And so the consistency you want to really go for here is kind of like this gelatinous, kind of almost rubbery mixture. We didn't add that much water or that much liquid in, and there's not that much fat in here, so it should kind of make it into like that classic kind of like thick paste. So now let's add in the 180 grams of tapioca starch here. This is the stage where it's going to really start to form like a mochi donut batter, right? You're going to start to see that it's really hard to handle. So we're going to get rid of that whisk, go back to like a blue spatula. I find that like the thinner, smaller spatulas actually work better for this. When it's kind of bigger, it's like harder to manage for some reason. But with a smaller, kind of thinner spatula, I could really form like the nooks and crannies of each of this batter. We actually made this I think 8 times before we got this down actually, because it was really hard. There's so many variables that you have to get down, but the most important part is that you kind of make sure that the heat is there from the beginning. Right now, we actually turned off the heat because it was actually too hot at this stage. So it's kind of like trial and error. You just kind of got to know. But a good rule of thumb is that for the beginning milk and oil stage, you want to go for maybe around 2 minutes of boiling it, or maybe not boiling it, but just kind of heating it up, and then putting in the mixture, the pastry mix, because then it'll start to form that mochi kind of pastry dough right there. So a lot of recipes online just call for like the whole egg in at this stage, but I like to go parts at a time, because what happened when I first made this is that I poured all of the egg in and it became way too liquidy, and it didn't even form any like mochi balls. It just kind of like flattened right as I kind of piped it in. So make sure you put part by part of the egg. I ended up only using like 1 3/4 of the egg. I had a little bit left, and that was the perfect amount. So yours might be a little different, but just go part by part, and you want to go for this consistency that's like a little gloopy, and it kind of forms that like V as it kind of droops off the spoon or the spatula. So now it's time to put the pastry dough into a piping bag. If you got a partner, I got my mom to do this with me. Shout out to Mom and Pack. But if you could do this on your own, if you're a professional, go for it. But if you need a partner, go for it. It makes your life so much easier. So let's talk about the dough here, right? You want to make sure that right when you cook the dough, you want to put it right into the pastry bag so that we can make sure that we're cooking almost instantly, right? Because we wanted to keep that texture. And that's where I think I went so wrong with this recipe. Like I said, I made this a lot of times, probably like 8 times before I got this down over the course of like a month, and every time I got it, it was about the consistency, and that's why it didn't really work out for me, right? Either it was too liquidy or it was too dry. So you want to go for this kind of in between, this perfect in between where it's like a batter that is loose, and that's kind of what you want to go. Imagine when you pipe it, right when you pipe it, you want it to retain a ball structure. So if it doesn't do that, either add some more flour or add some more eggs into the mixture. So out of all the steps in this recipe, this definitely has to be the hardest part, is forming the ring that really defines mochi donuts. So what I learned from this experience is that when you pipe something like a mochi donut, you want to make sure that you're going straight down with the piping bag and piping just as much as you need to form like a ball. And right when you have enough, you pull away from it and just really let go of it, forming like that little tip on top of it. So it's a shame that we didn't get this part. I think my camera shut off at this scene. But what we did is that we got all those misformed donuts and we just wet our finger and really shaped them into the balls that you see here. And so if you make mistakes, it's totally fine. You can always fix it in the end. So now just put that in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 170 degrees Celsius for maybe around 10 to 15 minutes, or just until you see some brown bits forming. So after 10-15 minutes, you're going to be rewarded with these awesome mochi donuts. Some are going to be perfectly shaped like this one, while others are going to look a little bit disformed, kind of like this one. This was kind of the worst one I kind of picked up, but it still tasted great, and that's all that really matters, right guys? So now it's time to take care of our glaze, which is going to really flavor our dish. So in around maybe 45 grams of powdered sugar, we're going to be adding maybe 5 to 6 teaspoons of fat-free milk. If you guys don't want any sugar in this recipe, go find a sugar-free frosting or sugar-free glaze. You can find them at maybe like Vons or your local grocery store. But the hard part about that is that you can't really customize it, or it's a little hard to add your favorite ingredients. Like today, we're going to be making a matcha glaze. So just beware of that. And if you really don't want the sugar, feel free to go for that option. So after we've poured some out just for like a regular glaze, we want to put maybe around 1 tablespoon of matcha powder in here. Matcha powder is super expensive, guys. This was like $17.99 for like a little tiny can. So, you know, the Asian side of me just had to come out. I couldn't have put in more than 1 tablespoon for this recipe, guys. I'm sorry. That kind of took away from the greenness, which is totally fine because the matcha flavor in there was really powerful actually with just 1 tablespoon. So if you guys really, really love matcha, go for maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons. But for me, 1 tablespoon was just fine. It was green enough. It could have been greener, yes. You could always add some more food coloring if you want to, but yeah, this stuff is super expensive, guys. Just try not to waste too much of it on the glaze. So this part's really exciting because we can finally see what we kind of created, and it kind of resembles matcha donuts now, right? So you're just gonna put it in, and the trick I like to do is I like to just put it there for like maybe 10 seconds or so and let everything drip out in the container. And after that, just for the sake of demonstration and for showing you guys, I pulled it out. Just kind of messy here, and it was perfect, guys. You can't ask for any more than this. So if you have some extra frosting like we did, feel free to make like an empty one, or just kind of take out some in the beginning before you put the matcha powder in, and you can put like a nice design to it and add some extra flavors into this. So that is really it for the recipe, guys. If you like this video, feel free to like it and subscribe. And if you made it for yourself, please tag us or let us know through Instagram or through YouTube. And yeah, let us know what other kind of dishes you guys would like to see. And we hope to see you guys in the next one. So you get all those awesome mochi flavors with way less fat. So try this recipe out, guys. It's super good, super flavorful, and yeah, it's a classic mochi donut.